We are back on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and now on the Internet 3 times a week on knookmedia.com. Our guest by phone, a friend of the program, R.C. West, Rob West, who wrote a great book about the POW MIA issue, a novel entitled The Thin Wall. So, Rob, it's you know, a lot of people find, and, you know, Clay and I have had this discussion, he finds it hard to believe that we've got that many people that, you know, were left in the Soviet Union after World War II and in Vietnam and Korea. We were talking about John Boutier there a minute ago, and I remember having him on the show, and he was saying that he thinks there's still people alive today. Now, I remember Bob Dornan. I had him on the program years ago, and when he was a congressman. And, you know, he privately told me, and I've actually had a friend of mine who was an intelligence officer tell me the same thing, that he thinks in the 90s, because we were normalizing relationships with Vietnam, that he thinks the POWs were killed at that time. So, you know, so here you have guys that, you know, were there for 25, 30 years and finally got exterminated for expediency.
Mm-hmm. I've heard similar stories that point to the same thing.
Yeah, it's scary. Now, Clay was going to ask you where we can get the book.
Well, the book is available on Amazon, as well as Barnes & Noble and pretty much most book outlets online. My writing name is R. Cyril West, but my friends call me Rob, so anybody who wants to contact me, feel free to call me Rob.
And you have a website, Rob?
I do have a website. It can be accessed by going to POWMIAtruth.com. POWMIAtruth.com. Exactly. And if you're good at spelling, you could also go to rcyrilwest.com.
And Cyril,
the MIA version is much easier.
Cyril is Cyril.
Yep.
That's for Marty's benefit.
See, actually, the printing was big enough on the cover for Clay to be able to read it.
Yeah, I can read the cover.
So tell us a little bit about that POWMIA site you have on Facebook. That's incredible, by the way.
Yeah, so I originally started the site more or less to do research and to try to connect with various people who were involved with the issue. And it's just blossomed into a site of 128,000 plus people, many who are most, I could even say, are more knowledgeable than I think I am. I mean, there's just people from all over coming on here and posting information, content that they know, photos of their trucks with the POW logo on it. There's a lot of people in the community who really care about our heroes and wanting to bring everybody home.
Has our government just walked away from these supposed POWs that still exist?
That's a good question. So I don't think anybody did this on purpose. I don't think there was a master plot to leave people behind. I think what happened was it just sort of happened, in particular because of Watergate, and then things sort of spiraled out of control, and it blew off the map. So you know, I don't think.
What do you mean because of Watergate?
Well, at the end of Vietnam War in 1973, during Operation Homecoming, 591 servicemen came home. But the government acknowledged that they believed there were many more than that, up to perhaps 200, some say 300, who were POWs who didn't come home. So I think what happened was that while they were pursuing this list and trying to get the rest of these heroes home, Watergate happened and became a distraction for Nixon. And then, as you can imagine, this sort of slipped down further on the list of things to do for Nixon and the administration. And I just don't think it was ever picked up by following administrations as a key goal to find these names, find out who was left behind and where were they, as well to investigate what had happened with soldiers being sent to the Soviet Union. Yeah,
Rob, let me piggyback on that. John Boutier, I had him on the show, and I think Clay was absent that day. He was working. Anyways, and I asked him the same question, and he said that a lot of the people in the Nixon administration ended up in the Reagan administration. So when Reagan wanted to pursue this issue, those same people didn't want to really pursue it because they were the ones that left that second group behind in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also said that part of the deal was we were going to pay the North Vietnamese, I can't remember what the dollar amount was, but we were going to pay him X amount of money for the remaining POWs. So we got the first half. The Vietnamese never got the money and said, well, the heck with you guys, we're not going to give you the second half. So
Right.
because they kept on asking, for years and years for that money, we kept, succeeding administrations aren't going to do that. So, the money was off the table, and the Vietnamese said, well, the heck with it. You can.
And it's quite possible they just turned around and sold the POWs to China and the Soviet Union, and from what I've heard, also North Korea.
Wow, they just sold these people?
It's possible. I think if that's what they were, they were after money to begin with.
So what would they be doing? Would they be just held in prison camps right now, doing slave work? Is that what it is, if there's any still alive?
Well, I think if there were any still alive, I don't imagine they would be doing slave work, but I think that they would be just kept in a prison because they can't be released at this point.
I mean, the Vietnam vets, there's a possibility that some of those would still be alive.
That's true. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, but you're at this stage of the game, assuming, which I think that they were a lot of POWs at the time, they'd have to be our age, 60s. You're not going to see anybody left. Maybe a scattered one or two at this stage of the game. I think it's, it's just by attrition they're gone. There was a great movie, and I've been racking my brain the last 20 minutes trying to remember it. I've got a copy of it at home, but it was a gentleman who ended up in the gulags in the 50s and 60s, and he got out, and he testified, that there were several Americans that he saw from World War II in the 60s in Siberia and the gulags. So, there's a lot of evidence to that effect.
Well,
yes,
looks like
there's a lot of evidence.
Looks like a very interesting book. I haven't read the book. I started skimming through it, but it certainly is interesting. And this is a fiction book. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, work of fiction inspired from truth.
Inspired from truth.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is, the character and what happened to him is probably what happened to several POWs, going through from Vietnam through Russia into places like Czechoslovakia. But, obviously we don't know of any specific individual. But you're just having a fictional account of something that we pretty much know happened in reality.
Right. I'm just really hoping that when people read the book, they stop to think, did something like this happen? And it inspires them to go online and do some research themselves and to read books that have been written on the topic that are nonfiction. Not to take what I have written as the specific truth, but I just want to open people's eyes as my eyes were open when I started to do research on this topic.
Have you got a follow-up to this book that's coming out?
It's not a follow-up. It's a separate book that addresses the POW issue as well. It's a separate story with different characters.
And when will that be released?
Right now I'm looking at the end of 2015.
Have you got a name for that book yet?
No, I don't. I usually wait till I'm close to the end to kind of finalize that, but hopefully that'll be soon.
Hopefully. This looks like an
It's a
interesting
long
book.
process.
And as you said, if you put it on tape, then Marty can read it.
I would be honored if Marty would read it.
I would love to read it. In fact, I've talked to a company about maybe doing some reading for them, but I would love to read it. But I had the pleasure of reading the transcript before it was actually made into a book, and I felt very honored that you asked me to do that, and I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you, and be more than happy to look at the next one if you would like me to do that again for you. Be more than happy to.
For sure.
So again,
I would love
to get more information about the book, people can contact you or contact your website. Where again?
POWMIATruth.com.
Mm-hmm. And the book's available at Amazon.
Book is available at Amazon. It's called The Thin Wall.
Mm-hmm. And
Take that in, and it'll take you right there.
And again, on Facebook, look up POWMIA. It's an incredible website, and Rob was the gentleman that put it together, and there's a lot of great information there. Rob, we want to have you back again.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for the time, and we will be back in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio News Talk 1180.